DevOps Center is a modern change management and release management tool available natively within Salesforce. It provides an end-to-end experience, allowing developers and admins to work together to build and deploy Salesforce applications. Its point-and-click interface allows you to manage environments, easily track changes, seamlessly integrate with source control systems, and perform deployments. Here are a few things to consider about DevOps Center. It offers a robust framework for managing your changes compared to today's change sets process. And using a version control system is mandatory with DevOps Center. At the moment, only GitHub is supported, but support is coming up for systems like Bitbucket, Azure DevOps, GitLab, etc. DevOps Center only works in Lightning and can be installed in production orgs, developer edition orgs, and Scratch orgs. It cannot be installed in sandboxes. DevOps Center will be able to work alongside existing CI/CD tools, and built-in CI/CD capabilities will be coming to DevOps Center in the future. So let's jump into the demo and see how DevOps Center is installed and configured. First and foremost, go to Setup, Dev Hub, and verify that the setting for source tracking in developer sandboxes is enabled. If it is not already enabled in your org, make sure to enable it first and then refresh your developer sandboxes to make them ready for source tracking. If you are using Scratch orgs for development, this step is not needed because source tracking is enabled by default in Scratch orgs. Then go to DevOps Center within Setup and click on Enable DevOps Center option to enable DevOps Center within your org. Once you click that, it pops up with an Accept License Agreement. You have to click the Accept button, and DevOps Center is now enabled in your org. And then go ahead and click this button to install the DevOps Center package. Click this button and it shows the installation screen. You can select for admins and click on Install, and you need to approve third-party access. Check that and click Continue. And it takes a while to install the DevOps Center package in your org. So you might see this message saying that this app is taking a long time to install. You can click Done and you'll receive an email when the installation has been completed. So I got the email that my installation is done, so I refresh the screen and I can see that DevOps Center is now installed in my org. The next step is to go to App Manager and create a connected app. So click on New Connected App and provide all the necessary details for DevOps Center. I'll be sharing these details in the description of this video. You basically have to provide the app name, the support email, and the icon URL and the start URL within Web App Settings, which points to the DevOps Center app. And then click on Save. And once your connected app is saved, click on the Manage button on the top, and you need to assign a permission set at the connected app level. So scroll down, go to Manage Permission Set section, and select SF DevOps name credentials from the permission sets available, and click on Save. Your connected app is now ready. So let's take a look at a set of permission sets that got installed along with the DevOps Center. So these are the permission sets that need to be assigned to different users based on their roles. The DevOps Center permission set need to be assigned to all the DevOps Center users, but the DevOps Center Manager permission set need to be assigned to specific users within your org who are responsible to set up the projects, environments, and users for DevOps Center. DevOps Center Release Manager is a permission set that need to be assigned to the Release Manager who will perform deployments to different environments in your pipeline. Initialize environments permission set is needed for the users who would connect to different environments while setting up the DevOps Center. And finally, name credentials is required again for all the DevOps Center users. For this demo, I will be the single user who will be performing all these roles. So I'll go to my user record and assign all these permission sets to myself. And now when I go to the app launcher and look for DevOps Center, now I can see the DevOps Center being available, and I can click that and it opens the DevOps Center. And since it's in beta, it's a little slow at this point. The new project button is still not available for me. Just give it a minute and yeah, now it's available. So I'll go ahead and click the new project button. And it's asking me to connect DevOps Center with GitHub. As we mentioned, GitHub is the only version control system that's currently supported with DevOps Center. So I'll click on connect to GitHub and give my GitHub credentials, and it's authorized. So I can see that authorized connection to GitHub successful. And now I can create a new project. I'll provide the project name details, AW Computing CRM, and I'll select the option to create a repository for my project as I'm setting it up for the first time. Alternatively, you can go with an existing repository for this project. If you already have a GitHub repository, you can click that and give the link over there. But for now, I'm going with a new repository. The project is now created. The next step is to connect a release environment, which is nothing but my production org. And then I have to connect to the rest of the environments and then finally complete my pipeline. I'll click this button to add a release environment. It's AW Computing CRM release. So it's asking me what kind of environment is this. It's my production org. This is where I want to push my changes to. So I select that and click login. I need to give my production environment credentials, click login. And it's asking me if I can allow access to the DevOps Center to the production org. I'll click allow, and it's connected to my production org. Similarly, I need to follow the same process to connect my dev environments as well. So I'll click in there. Now it takes me into the project for the first time, and I land into the settings tab. And under that, I can see the environments, and the production environment is just added. I have work items, pipeline, and settings under the project. Right now we're under the settings section. Under environments, I click add to add my first development environment. Let's call it dev1. And what kind of environment is this? It's a sandbox or a scratch org. This environment is of course used for development, and it already has source tracking enabled. The very first step we have seen in today's demo is to go to DevHub and enable source tracking in sandboxes. So we are good there. So I'll select this checkbox and click login. It asks me now for my dev environment credentials. I'll provide that and click login to sandbox. And my dev1 environment is now added in the DevOps Center. I'll follow the exact same steps and add another environment dev2, because in my project there are 2 developers and each of them are using their own sandbox for development. I'll click add one more time, and now I'll create my UAT environment where my testing team is going to test all the changes before pushing it to production. The UAT is also a sandbox, but I'm not checking this checkbox because I'm not using UAT for any development. So I'll just click login and enter my UAT credentials, and the UAT environment is now connected. For this demo purpose, I'll just have 2 dev environments and a UAT environment. Typically in your projects, you might have a lot of other environments as well. So let's now go to create a pipeline. And you can see that the dev environments are listed, and then there is a bunch of other environments in the template of the pipeline, like your integration, UAT, staging, and production. So this can be a typical example of how a pipeline might look. Let's say you don't have an integration environment in your setup. Go ahead and delete that stage. And also in our example, let's not have a staging environment. We'll just have devs, UAT, and production. So I'll leave the UAT as is. But since we do not have a staging, let's go ahead and remove the staging stage. I can always shift these stages to the left by clicking add stage left or shift stage left and right, etc. But now I'm just going to remove it. The pipeline is not yet ready to be activated because I have not specified the branch name for my UAT environment. So let's go ahead and do that. Select the UAT as the environment for this. And to set the branch, I click on the specify branch button. I can then specify if I want to create a new branch or use an existing branch in my repository. If I go with creating a new branch, it clones or creates a branch from the stage which is to the right of my current stage, which is the production and which is the main branch in this case. So it clones or creates a new branch from the main branch. So let's name it AWCRM UAT and click save. Now we can see that the pipeline is ready to be activated and the activate button is enabled. I have also specified that the UAT stage is my bundling stage. So what's a bundling stage? A bundling stage is where you can group or bundle a bunch of work items before you deploy it to the further stages in your pipeline. So let's go ahead and click on Activate button to activate the pipeline. The pipeline is now activated. So that concludes the process for installing and setting up DevOps Center. Now let's take a look at how to create work items. A work item is typically a logical piece of work or a user story that is generally worked upon by a single developer. So in DevOps Center within the Work Items tab, a tech lead or an architect who assigns work items to developers comes here and clicks on this new work item button and gives the details for the work item. Let's say here a custom object needs to be created. So the details of what needs to be done is provided and the work item is assigned to one of the developers in the team. And click on Save to create and save the work item. The tech lead then follows the same process to create all the work items necessary for that particular release of the project. Now the developer logs into DevOps Center and takes a look at the work items that are assigned to him and starts working on the work items one by one. Going into the work item in the Details tab, he can see what needs to be performed exactly, and then in the Changes tab, there's an option to select that I want to develop and commit my changes to the work item feature branch from DevOps Center directly. So he selects that and from the drop down select the dev environment that he needs to work on, let's say dev 1, and click on the proceed button. This then creates a feature branch and the name of the feature branch is exactly same as the name of the work item. We can see that in the GitHub repository, the new branch for the feature branch is created. So back in the DevOps Center, the developer clicks on the dev1 environment directly from the work item and it launches the dev1 environment in a new tab. So as a point and click developer, I can go ahead and perform my changes like creating the new object for the review object, followed by a few more changes like creating a custom tab and adding the custom tab to the recruiting app. Also, maybe the changes involve creating a checkbox field and assigning the field to a couple of profiles, and finally adding the field to the page layout of the custom object. So after the development is done, the developer goes to the DevOps Center and clicks on the Pull Changes button, and it pulls all the changes that the developer has performed in the Dev1 sandbox, including the layouts, the profiles, the custom field, the custom app, custom tab. All the changes that the developer has done are available to pull and add to the feature branch. I can selectively pick the changes that need to be added to the feature branch and put a commit message. For some reason, if the pull changes did not pull all the changes that you're expecting to be pulled from your sandbox, you can always click the Add Components Manually link and manually select what component types and what components you want to add to this particular feature branch. But for now, I'll skip that and just add all these changes that I have checked above into the feature branch by clicking on Commit Changes button. We can see the status right here saying that the commit has initiated, and whatever is happening behind the scenes in the version control system, we can see the statuses right here from the DevOps Center without leaving the DevOps Center. So I can see that now it's retrieving the metadata and it's in progress. And finally, the commit is being created in the version control system and it is pushed to the remote repository. The commit is now complete. If I now go to GitHub and take a look at the feature branch, I can see that my latest commit is now reflected in GitHub. The users working out of DevOps Center need not be actually bothered with what is happening in the version control system, but just for an understanding purpose, we can check and see if that is really reflected or not. As a developer, once my development is done, I'll go ahead and click on the Create Review button in the DevOps Center, and it creates a change request for me. And the status of the work item has now changed to in review. And back in GitHub, we can see that this has effectively created a pull request which says I want to merge the feature branch into my UAT branch. So as a developer, my work is done. I leave for the day, and the tech lead or the architect comes back into DevOps Center, takes a look at all the work items that are in review status, which are pending his review. So he clicks into the work item and then clicks on the View Change Request button, which opens the change request or the pull request in GitHub. So he can take a look at the commit and make sure that everything is okay. So once he thinks that everything is good and the change request is ready to be merged, he clicks on this Ready to Promote button within DevOps Center, and the status of the work item changes to Ready to Promote. So if I go back to my work items, I can see that the status is ready to promote. So I'm done for the day and I log off as a tech lead. And then the release manager logs in, goes to the pipeline section in the DevOps Center. And he then takes a look at all the work items that are in approved status, which are ready to promote. And he clicks on this Promote Selected button to migrate or push these changes from the dev environment into the UAT environment. So click on this Promote button and the code migration starts. So at this point, two things happen behind the scenes. The change request or the pull request is now merged away in the version control system. And in addition to that, the actual metadata or the code changes are also deployed into the UAT environment. So it has promoted successfully. And in the version control system, we can see that the pull request has been merged away. We can check if the code has been actually deployed in the org or not by clicking on the drop-down and selecting Open Environment. It launches the UAT environment right from the DevOps Center. I can quickly check if the custom object is created or not. And I can see that the review object is now available in UAT. And on the work items list, I can see that the status of this work item has changed to promoted. Now, let us take a look at something called as a hybrid team scenario, where some developers are working outside of the DevOps Center in their own existing workflows to complete their development work. Here, the second work item involves creating a Lightning Web Component and Apex class, which cannot be done directly from the setup menu and requires a separate process using VS Code. So this developer now selects the second option, which says, I want to develop and commit my changes to the work item feature branch from outside of DevOps Center. It will then create a feature branch, again with the branch name same as the name of the work item. As a developer working out of VS Code, I have connected my VS Code to my Dev2 sandbox and pointing to the main branch of my repository. So I'll quickly run a git fetch to fetch the newly created feature branch, which is the 00001 feature branch, and I'll check out to that feature branch and start making my changes. It's now pointing to my feature branch. And the first thing I'll do is to create a Lightning Web Component. Let's call it Hello World. Here is some HTML code for it and the meta XML. So I'm done with my LWC. Now we are creating an Apex class. Let's call it Demo Controller. And I have some sample code for it here. And also creating a test class for it. And I'm done with my code changes. Using the package.xml, I am deploying these changes into my org, which is the dev2 environment. And once it's deployed successfully, I'm going to quickly log into the dev environment and perform a round of unit testing. So I drag the newly created LWC onto the Flexi page, which is the home page, and make sure everything looks good in my unit testing. Now that my development is done, I'll stage my changes and commit my changes into my version control, adding a commit message and push to remote repository. In GitHub, now I can check if my feature branch has all the changes that I've pushed from my VS Code. And then I'll click on this compare and pull request button to raise a pull request for this feature branch against the UAT branch and submit by clicking the create pull request button. So we can see that the pull request is now in open status. And back in DevOps Center, the status of the work item has changed to in review. While I was working in GitHub, behind the scenes, the changes are automatically reflecting in DevOps Center. Now the person reviewing the code logs into GitHub, takes a look at the pull request, checks the commit, and everything looks good. So he goes and merges the pull request right from the GitHub. The pull request is now merged in GitHub. And if I go back to DevOps Center, I can see that this pull request or the change request has been merged externally, and the status of the work item changed to ready to promote. Now the release manager comes to the pipeline tab in DevOps Center to promote this work item to the next stage. But it says that the work item was merged outside of DevOps Center. So the only thing that is yet to be done is to deploy the changes in the UAT sandbox. So the release manager clicks on complete promotion to push the changes. And it starts deploying the changes into the UAT sandbox. So we have seen the example of a hybrid team where everything is done outside of DevOps Center, like the development, committing to version control, creating a pull request, and merging the pull request is all done independently, but still it comes together in the DevOps Center, and we can deploy the changes from the DevOps Center. This works as long as the name of the feature branch is same as the name of the work item. If I go back to the work items, I can see the second work item is also in promoted status, but the dev environment is blank because the developer worked on this item outside the DevOps Center. Now, all the work items are deployed in UAT. Testing is completed and signed off, and it is good to go to production. As we have specified UAT as a bundling stage during the initial setup of the pipeline, all the work items can now be deployed together into production as a bundle. So I click this button to promote as work item bundle. Again, I see a similar pop-up, but this time it asks me for a version number as it is going into my release environment. I enter the version number as R1.0 and specify the test classes to be run for my production rollout and click promote button. And promotion to the production stage has started. Again, this does two things at the back end. Merge the changes in GitHub from UAT branch into the main branch, and also deploy the code changes into my production environment. There you go, our 1.0 release is now live in production. I can confirm that by seeing the commits in the main branch in GitHub, as well as the code components being available in the production org. All the work item status is now changed as closed. Let's say a few weeks later there are some enhancement requests coming from the business and you need to prepare work items in DevOps Center for your next release. So I click on the new work item and specify the enhancement details. And the developer logs in, selects the work item and selects Dev1 sandbox to make the changes and clicks proceed. It shows a pop-up saying this environment is out of sync. When compared with the next stage in the pipeline, which is UAT in this case, this Dev1 sandbox is not in sync. That is because UAT branch has some extra changes that are not in Dev1. And same is the case with Dev2 sandbox as well. I can click on What's Different link to see which work item code is missing in Dev1, and I will know that the LWC code is not present in Dev1. Similarly, Dev2 sandbox does not have the review custom object that was developed in Dev1 sandbox. By clicking on the sync here, we can synchronize both these sandboxes right from the DevOps Center to make sure all the dev environments are having the latest code base before starting any new development work. Dev1 is now in sync. Let's sync Dev2 as well. And there you go, all set to start working on the next release. So that concludes the demo part of how to use DevOps Center in various scenarios. Salesforce is working on making DevOps Center as the one-stop tool for all your deployments and eventually replace change sets. So hope this session is helpful in getting started with DevOps Center. Please subscribe to SFDC Bytes for more such videos. Thank you.